Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to my podcast, Don't Get a Therapist Yet. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Jennifer Roblin. She is an anxiety specialist and a therapist. So, Jen, a very warm welcome to you. I'm so pleased you've agreed to be a guest on my podcast. And for the audience, can you just start by telling the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Of course I can, Wendy, and thank you for inviting me on. So, yes, you're right. My name's Jennifer Roblin. I'm an anxiety specialist and therapist, and I've been working with my private practice for the past 10 years. Now, my mission is to help people understand that anxiety does not need to hold them back, and everybody can take back control of their anxious thoughts and behaviors. Now, I got into this about 10 years ago when I started my own practice. Before that, I was in corporate leadership for 30 years. And I'd been there for so long and I loved it. Don't get me wrong, I had huge teams. And what I was recognizing is that the thing that was holding the majority of people back was anxiety. So when it came for me to change careers, I wanted to be able to give back to others. I was looking for a job that it felt more aligned with me. And I really struggled to find what that would be. So I took a year off work to work out what that was going to look like. And it became evident that anxiety was the thing I was going to specialize in. Like I said, I'd seen it in my teams over and over and over again. And by mentoring the teams, you could really see a difference in the way they worked themselves, but also how they worked together. And I'd had my own experience with anxiety too. I'd struggled for 30 odd years with that. So I had my first panic attack at the age of 11. So I was pulling information in from lots of different areas, my own personal experience, my teams in the corporate world, and then I went on to study and expand my knowledge all about anxiety. Lots and lots of training in psychology, human behavior, neuro-linguistic programming. I was intrigued by all of it. And yeah, that's how it started, really, Wendy.
And that's a really interesting story that you have, Jen. And it sounds as though you've studied very hard to actually earn the title of being an anxiety specialist. And it's really good, I think, because there's so much anxiety around, isn't there? I'm sure you're inundated
Absolutely.
with it because there is still so much anxiety.
Yeah.
And we had a very interesting conversation before we get any further about cognitive behavioral therapy, didn't we? Because I think you know I'm an accredited cognitive behavior therapist, but you haven't found it quite as useful, have you? What would you just what's your opinion on CBT then, Jen?
Yeah, I have a lot of clients that come to me having had CBT. Now, I think CBT is an amazing starting point, and I think it can really help in the moment. Now, what I do find is that clients, they think that they're cured. They are very happy with their CBT, and then it comes back. The anxiety comes back again, and they're looking for more long-lasting techniques that can actually get to the root cause of the problem. So, yes, I do think CBT absolutely has a role. I do like to go a little bit deeper, though, and get to the root cause.
And that's really good that people know that as well, because people often in NHS services will be offered CBT therapy, and CBT is evidence-based therapy as well. Um,
Absolutely.
and it does have a role, like you say. But and I think that the other thing I find as a CBT therapist, I mean, I often do EMDR as well, which is another therapy to get to the root cause,
Yeah.
or other things as well. So I think sometimes if it's too prescribed, maybe it's not long lasting, is what you're saying. If it's too sort of by the book, it doesn't always meet individual needs. Would that be fair to say, Jen?
Absolutely, Wendy, because everyone's so unique.
Mm,
Way they've gotten their journey is so unique. So a one size fits all is never
mm,
going to work. It has to be really adaptable to the person that's sitting in front of you.
mm.
And, I work with people from all walks of life. I work a lot with teenagers. I go into schools. I go into universities. I also go into the corporate world. So I'm dealing, and as well as my private practice, so I'm dealing with multiple different challenges that different people have. So I think it's being able to be agile and find the right solution for the person sitting in front of you is really important.
And I totally agree with that. I think what makes a good therapist is actually applying the knowledge to the individual. And if you're just sort of like reading or going for a manuscript type of therapy, it doesn't, one size doesn't fit all. I totally agree with you there. It's about your application, your knowledge to that individual situation, which I think you
Yeah.
probably do in spades, don't you, Jen?
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. So perhaps we could just start by explain to the audience what is your understanding of what anxiety is, what it is, and what causes it.
Yes, I love this question. So the dictionary definition is that anxiety is overthinking, worry, nervousness. And that's something that we all experience. That's not unique to anyone with an anxiety disorder. Everybody has a bit of nervousness, a bit of worry at some point in their lives. So, anxiety, when it becomes a disorder, it's when we're constantly overthinking, we're constantly worrying, and it has an impact on our daily life. So, the thing that I really want to get across on here, Wendy, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to do so, is that anxiety is also a lifesaver. We would
Mm.
not have survived as a species without it. Now, if you think back to your own family, we all have two parents who have two parents who have two parents. If you go back just 12 generations, we've had over 4,000 ancestors each. Now, those ancestors have survived plagues, famine, wars. There was no medicine. You know, what they've been through is colossal in comparison to what we have to deal with today. And anxiety has kept them all safe. We would not be here without it. And that's really important to get across because when we can change the way we think about anxiety, everything else can start to change too. So what else is fascinating that I always like to share with clients, anxiety is in all creatures. So if you see a deer in the headlights as you're driving along the road, it will freeze, part of the
Mm.
fight, flight, and freeze response. And then once it senses that the danger has passed, it will then run away. So we're noticing anxiety in all animals. If you see a lizard, when you stand over that lizard, it will stay really, really still. And then once it realizes that you're not moving, you're no longer a threat, it scuttles away. So anxiety has been around forever. It's been part of the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and now the human brain. So we have to go right back to basics and look at evolution to understand exactly what anxiety is. And basically, we needed to be aware of where the tiger was hiding. We were living in caves. We were, we had other tribes that were wanting to take our shelter, our food. So we had to be able to protect ourselves. So anxiety kept us hyper vigilant to danger. We didn't need to know what it was like to go skipping through a field of flowers. And this is why we all have a negativity bias,
Mm.
because we need to be able to focus on the things that will ensure our survival.
Mm.
So when we can
Totally.
start seeing the benefit of anxiety, it can change a lot of the way we relate to it. It serves a purpose, and it's being able to communicate and understand what that purpose is to each individual so that they can use that knowledge to overcome it. And of course, alongside that, we teach a lot of tools and techniques
Mm.
that they can calm their nervous system and feel safe and secure again, because it's all about being safe and secure.
Mm. That's such a good explanation, Jen. I love that. And that sort of, reframe about rather than saying anxiety is a bad thing and feeling embarrassed and ashamed of having anxiety, actually to see it as a sort of resource that can
Absolutely.
actually, which is that we're here from success from our ancestors. The ancestors survived so that we can be here. We did
Mhm.
well. We got good genes and we
Absolutely.
survived.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
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 And I think you made a really good point about, in the past, things were really bad. You had more disease, had more death, you had plagues, you didn't have the same sort of hygiene as nowadays, access to food, all that type of things. But what is it about today? Why, why are we so anxious nowadays, do you think?
Great question. Our brains they are what we call neuroplastic, so they can change. However, it takes millions of years for these changes to take effect. Now, again, we have to go back to evolution. We were worried about tigers, we were worried about famine, we were worried about all these serious things. Today, we're having the same reaction in our bodies and in our mind when we're stuck in a traffic jam, when we look at our inbox, when we have an argument with a colleague, when somebody doesn't reply to a text quickly enough. Our world has completely changed. In fact, I was on ITV News recently talking about phone anxiety because the younger generation, they can no longer talk on their phone. If their phone rings, they get a feeling of dread and panic because they're not used to having a conversation without being able to pre-plan what you text.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's getting more and more widespread, and I work a lot with teenagers, but I'm also seeing a lot of kids in their 20s that
mm,
are really, really afraid of so many different things. They're afraid of the judgment of others.
mm,
Now, this is really interesting. Again, this serves us. It's just very different in the modern world to how it used to be.
mm.
Now, if we think back to how we used to live in tribes,
Yes.
if we were ostracized, if we were kicked out of our tribe, it would mean certain death.
Mm,
We couldn't hunt, cook the food, keep the campfire going, and sleep all on our own. We needed that community around us. And unfortunately, we don't have the same community now that we did back then. However, we do still have this fear of judgment because if we were kicked out of the tribe, if we upset people, that has lasting consequences from a historic point of view. And I see it so often in teenage girls
mm,
that the friendship groups they often fall out with each other
mm,
between the ages of 13 and 15. It's very, very common because they're beginning to start understanding more about themselves and they go to different groups to fulfill their needs, and it can be devastating for the children that aren't taken along on that ride. So I see it come up a lot in that context, and it's very, very relevant when we think it's a threat to our safety. Our body still has that same reaction. We need to be able to remind ourselves that we are not in danger.
mm,
And I don't know about you, Wendy, but how many of your friends are you still in touch with from your school days?
mm.
What's
Hardly
a
any. Mm,
what's a massive, massive challenge to young teens is irrelevant when you get to our age.
mm.
But it's really hard for a 13-year-old to realize that it hasn't got lasting consequences.
Mm. And I think you made a really good point about, understanding the brain in neuroscience. And I think at that age, the brain's still developing and they're trying to get more a sense of their own self and identity. They're trying to move away from the parents, aren't they? And trying to
Yes,
bring themselves into the world. But the problem with the world, it's not always at that age a friendly place. And actually
absolutely.
trying to get a sense of belonging with your friends can be a very difficult process, as you're actually describing.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that sense of belonging, like you say, I don't know why it is so much amongst females, but it keeps changing, doesn't it? They're in one group in one week, and then it changes, and they're another group, and they fall out, and that it could be very, very difficult for somebody of
absolutely.
that age. Yeah, totally
Yes.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yes, interestingly, I'm seeing it more and more in older women too. I used to just see it
Ah.
in the teenagers, but now I'm seeing it in more women in their 40s, 50s, which is a real shame. But it's that sense of where do we belong?
Mm,
We haven't got that same feeling of belonging that we used to have, and we
mm,
can feel very, very threatened by it.
mm. And I don't know about this, but another thing I just thought about is, maybe. in previous years you had a community because you sort of stayed in your town and you sort of grew up and you knew your relatives and your friends and that was part of your community. Nowadays we have to go to where the work is, or we often move away from our community and we try and get into another community, but that can be
Yes.
quite hard if you're new to that, or
Absolutely, and it can be really tricky. Now, I've lived abroad a lot. With my corporate job, I was relocated in multiple times, and it was always easier to find a friendship group when you're in a new town because you're the different one and you can relate to other people that are outsiders. The hardest part for me was moving back to England
ah
because all my friends had, redistributed their friendship groups. They were all at a different point in life. I was away for 15 years. So, they all had children. I didn't, or I had a 2-year-old at that point, which was very different to their teenagers.
mm,
And fitting back in England was the hardest part for me.
mm,
And, this is something that we all experience. If we fall out with a friendship group, when there's nothing to differentiate us, to make us special, we can really struggle to fit in. So that's why it's really important to find like-minded people that you can connect with and have that common goal of what you're trying to achieve. So
mm,
whether that's joining a club, going, to something that you really enjoy, because you're going to always be able to have that common ground to start building up those bonds again. And
mm.
and it can be quite intimidating joining a new group.
Very much so, very much so. And I think nowadays with the pandemic and people working more at home, and I think people go out less, we sort of have more takeaways now. The actual art of actually going out and socializing and finding places to go, I think also can be a bit more challenging nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I'm hearing it over and over again.
Mhm. And people lose the
It's
skills. They
they
sort of,
do
yeah,
lose the skills. They
yeah.
do. And another thing that I'm finding is um we're worried about our future. We're worried about one of the things that's coming up for me a lot at the moment is people contacting me about death anxiety and the future because we're inundated with information on our televisions, on our screens. It's all doom and gloom
Mm,
because obviously that's what sells.
mm,
And whereas we used to know what was going on in our tribe, we now know what's going on in the entire world. And our body doesn't know the difference between
mm,
what we're watching and what is actually being experienced by us. Which is why, if you've seen a wonderful film and you're sitting on the edge of the seat and you're feeling all those emotions that the film wants you to receive or to
mm.
feel, we're getting the same impact when we watch the news,
Oh, yeah.
a soap opera that a client was talking to me about recently. She's been watching, I think it was EastEnders, for years, and now she's saying that she's had to stop watching it because it was too down. It was bringing her mood down because it was so depressing.
Mm,
So it really is a case of being careful, being mindful of
mm,
what you watch and what you let into your system,
mm,
because your body is going to release the chemicals in response to what you're watching, regardless of what your mind is telling you.
mm. That's so true. It's so true, isn't it? And I think sometimes we can get addicted. I mean, another thing that I think a lot of people describe to me is something called doom scrolling. What do you think about that, and how does that affect us?
And this is a really interesting one as well. Obviously, doom scrolling is best avoided at all times. We're not going to find the answers that we want that are going to lift us back up. We're going to find the negativity. Um, and that really has a big impact because it makes us start to believe that that's the only option out there for us. We're not
Mm,
seeing the good news. Doom scrolling, every time we scroll through social media, this is the same with any addiction, really.
yeah.
And as we scroll through social media, we are getting a dopamine hit.
Mm,
Now, social media has been designed based on the old slot machines in,
mm,
Vegas and gambling. And we want to have the unexpected show up. There's always a little bit of excitement about what's coming next. So we keep on scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And every time we scroll through, we get a dopamine hit. So our dopamine levels go up. the challenge we've got is that our dopamine levels will always reset. So after we've had a high of scrolling, in whether it's good news, your nice sort of fluffy cat videos on TikTok, or whether it's doom scrolling, then going to get the counterbalance, and you'll have a slump afterwards. So where we think that we're pacifying ourselves with kitten videos, it has the opposite impact. And
Mm.
again, doom scrolling just amplifies that. We're looking at negativity over and over and over again. And I think I said to you before, I haven't watched the news for 17 years. And
Wow.
a lot of people are quite shocked by that.
Mm.
And I used to run some courses, and I can remember saying to somebody once, that I didn't watch the news. This was many years ago. And she said to me, "That's so irresponsible. How can you not know what goes on in the world?" But you always do know.
Mm.
You always know. There's never been a point in time when I haven't been made aware of something that I need to be made aware of. She tried it herself, and she tried it for 6 weeks. We were running the course for 6 weeks, and she's never watched the news since,
Wow.
because it has such a negative impact on our lives. And we're only reading one person's point of view.
Mm.
There's always an alternate side to what's being reported. And, we can get into a lot of arguments, fights, debates, because we have such a strong opinion on something. And sometimes we don't have the full picture.
Mm. And I think also they know that negative news catches our attention as well, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
speculation. So again, we're fed that negative news because it our brains naturally are alerted to it. And also on social media, your algorithm will actually, if you're scrolling negative news, it will give you more negative news as well.
Yes,
So you get more of
absolutely.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Say if you are aware and you're listening to this podcast and you're doom scrolling, how would you help somebody in that situation, Jen? What would you advise?
I'd advise them to set a limit. Now, I'm
Mm.
not saying that people need to stop social media altogether or stop scrolling altogether. The internet, social media, they all have a place, and they've been fantastic in many ways. So we've got to look at it from a balanced point of view. It's how we're using it that's the challenge. So try your best to not doom scroll. Remind yourself that you're only getting one side of the story. Obviously, a lot of pharmaceutical companies will put a lot of information out there. They don't want us to heal ourselves. They want us to feel broken, because there's a lot of companies making a lot of money out of people feeling broken. So be careful of what you're watching. Stick to reputable sources and try and limit the time that you're willing to spend on there. Now, an antidote to doom scrolling, go for a walk in nature.
Mm.
Now, I talk
Yeah.
about this so much.
Me too. I love it.
Yeah, and no, it seems so simple, and a
Yeah.
lot of people think it's too simple.
Yes.
But if you walk in nature, notice how your heart rate slows down. Notice how I was going to talk about this later, but you can go into peripheral vision. And peripheral vision is one of the hacks that I really like for calming down your nervous system. So when you're walking through a forest, or, in a nice field, nice natural setting, you're aware of everything around you. You're aware of the trees, of maybe other people, of colours, which means you've gone into peripheral vision. And that puts you into what we call the rest and digest state. Now, that's the opposite of the fight and flight.
Yeah.
So your nervous system can be in one, the fight and flight, the anxious way, or it can be the rest and digest, the calm way. It can't be in both. So you can flip your nervous system really easily by going into peripheral vision and seeing all around you. A great way of explaining this, sorry, am I jumping around too much,
No,
Mandy,
not
here?
at all. No.
Perfect. A great way of explaining this is most of us, at least if we haven't driven a car, we've been in a car. So we'll be driving along the road, and we're seeing buildings, we're seeing trees, we're seeing people everywhere. If the car in front of us puts its foot on the brake, our vision goes instantly to the brake light, and we react immediately by putting our own foot on the brake. That's anxiety. That's anxiety that we haven't had to stop, think, and process. We've instinctively put our foot on the brake. So it's helped us. But what's interesting here is we've only seen that brake light. You'll notice that you no longer see the trees, you no longer see the people, you no longer see the buildings. That's how quickly we can flip our vision and our nervous system to protect us. So walking in nature opens up our vision. It helps us see everything all around us, and it helps us go into our rest and digest. Now, is this just recorded or is this visual as well, Wendy? Because I can give a quick
So
demo.
we're visualizing it on for YouTube. So
Perfect.
the
So
the
what I've
audio
done,
and visual.
okay, so I'll explain what I'm doing. So if we were to put our hands up by our ears
Yep,
and wiggle our fingers, if you can see your fingers moving whilst you're looking straight ahead,
yep.
you've gone into peripheral vision.
Oh, yeah. Doing
This
it.
is how you know. And as you can see your fingers, you can see what's either side of you. You might be able to become aware of what's above you. You might be aware of your lap. That's going into peripheral vision. So it's a great way of calming down your nervous system. It's one of the top tips I give. I do teach public speaking as well. So it's one of the top tips for anyone that's going onto stage and about to speak in front of a big audience. It will calm your nervous system before you go out there.
Okay, that's a really good one, isn't it, Jen? And it's one that people can really relate to. And I think what you've done very well is I've had people come to me and said, "Oh, yeah, the therapist has said go for a walk." I mean, that's ridiculous. That won't sort of cure me. But when you explain the science behind it and you actually explain the physiology of how your body responds to that, it's like,
Mm.
that makes sense now. Now I understand. And also,
Yeah,
you don't want to go for a walk just looking for danger either. What you're saying, you want to go for a walk and embrace the nature as well. So it's how you go for a walk is
absolutely.
important. And you've
Absolutely.
explained that really well. Yeah.
Another point on that where it will help to hack your nervous system as well. When we're going for a walk, try not to look downwards. We spend a lot of our time looking down at our phones, looking down at our screens. Now, historically, from an evolutionary perspective, all of our predators were on the ground. So when we're looking down, we're sending signals to our nervous system that we're scanning for danger. So when you're out on your walk, try and keep your chin up and look around you. Because again, it's another nervous system hack. When you're looking up, your body thinks you're safe. So
Mm,
it's just becoming aware. Looking down means you're looking for danger. Looking up, you're sending signals that you're in a safe place.
mm. That's really interesting. And I suppose sometimes people are looking down, perhaps on their computers and everything that they spend a lot of time looking down and just
Yeah.
actually taking that time out and going and looking up. I mean,
Yes.
that's such a very powerful thing that people can do,
You can do it
which
like
is really
that.
good.
It's so
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really good. I love that
it's
one.
interesting. If you think of a challenge that you might have, and you think about it and look down and you mark the intensity out of 10, you'll find the intensity of that challenge is so much higher than if you look up. If you think about the same challenge that you're facing or the same decision that needs to be made, and you look up and think about it, you'll get a different solution.
Amazing. Yeah. Wow. Well, like you say, people can do that now, can't they? They can take that away and start doing that and actually manage and control their anxiety. That's really, really good stuff, Jen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And I know you've got so many strategies. Maybe perhaps you could just give one more for the audience. I know you've got a lot there. Would that be too much to ask? One
No,
more.
no, of course not. Of course not. Which one should I choose? One of my favorite strategies, and I know you're familiar with this one, Wendy, because I've done it with you before, but it's about unspinning those anxious feelings. So the best way to explain is for your audience to focus on where they feel their anxiety right now.
Mm,
And quite often we'll feel it in our chest or
mm,
our tummy, but it
totally.
could be a variety of different places. It's different for everybody. And I want you to really focus on where that intensity is and really tune into it. And it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It'll feel familiar because we're used to feeling it there, but it's not a pleasant feeling. So I want you to just focus on where it is and give it a size. How big is that feeling? How heavy is that feeling? And just notice what it feels like right now. Notice what colour it is. And sometimes people will say to me, but it doesn't have a colour. Your subconscious will know the colour. It will always know it. And I want you to just focus on which way it's spinning. It will be spinning either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Which way feels familiar to you? And once you've established what's familiar, I'd like you to spin it the opposite direction.
Mm,
And as you start spinning it the opposite direction, you can use your hands to help you. Some people like to just use their hands to guide how they're spinning it. As you start to spin it the opposite direction, it will start to feel a little bit weird. Now, what you're doing there is you're creating new neural pathways because
mm,
this isn't what you're used to doing. This isn't your body's natural response. You're giving it an alternative way. And as you keep on unspinning that, and it can take anything from 2 minutes to 10 minutes, possibly longer, you'll start to notice that that anxiety completely disappears.
mm,
You'll start to notice the size of that feeling gets smaller, the weight of that feeling gets lighter. You'll notice how the color changes. And your audience might be thinking, that sounds crazy.
mm.
But I encourage you to try
Works.
it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm doing it now. Yeah, I was doing it. Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. I love
yeah.
that one.
Yes, it's one of my favorite ones. And it really, really, it helps your audience take back control of their thoughts and their feelings. And this is the thing with anxiety, we can feel so out of control.
Yes,
We can feel that we have no agency over what's going on,
yes.
but we do have much more agency than we realize.
Mm.
It's just
Absolutely.
understanding the tips and the tricks that we can use to
Mm,
hack our nervous system. We use a lot of neuroscience, a lot of what we teach. People have known this for centuries and centuries. And what's amazing now, this is why I love neuroscience, we're now having the scientific evidence to back up what humans have known for many, many years, but we forgot about.
That's so true, isn't it? And there's sort of phrases that you hear, don't you? Like trust your gut or your gut instinct. And now it's actually understanding more about, what is the role of the gut and how it actually
Yes.
links to anxiety and things like that.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, our bodies are just incredible,
Mm.
absolutely incredible. I mean, even to just go through the few of the symptoms of anxiety, if that's okay,
Yeah.
just so that people recognize what's normal and what isn't. Because a lot of the time they have a feeling and they don't realize it's related to anxiety. So what actually happens is your heart starts beating a lot faster because it's pumping blood to your limbs, because it's preparing you to run away from danger really fast. A fascinating thing I find, your blood starts to clot because if you're attacked, you don't want to bleed to death.
Mm.
Your pain receptors go up so that you can tolerate more pain if something was to happen. So your digestion, your immunity, your reproductive organs, they all shut down. Let's be honest, you don't need to be digesting food or doing algebra if you're running away from a tiger.
Absolutely.
You start to sweat. Your
Yeah.
body is preparing you to cool back down because you're going to be running away and heating up. So your body is cooling you down. The front part of your brain, it sends resources to the rest of your body so that it can prepare everything that's needed. You get that butterfly feeling, the heart rate. You start breathing up in your chest. You might get a dry throat. You blush, all the blood has rushed to the surface. Your eyes change because you're now focused on what the danger is, and you need to be able to see and take in all the information. So your body is doing all of these things without you having any understanding of what it's doing. Your body knows best.
Mm. That's so beautifully described as well, Jen. And people with anxiety can really relate to that and go, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me. And I think sometimes people get anxious about being anxious as well. So they start getting the physical
Yes,
symptoms and then they think, oh my goodness me, I'm out of control. What's going to happen? And then
yes,
the anxiety gets worse. It
yeah.
kind of goes into panic
Well,
as well.
they go to the GP, and it's completely understandable. The first time you have a panic attack or you feel this way, it's hard to know what's going on. It's unfamiliar. So you go to your GP, and then your GP tells you there's nothing wrong. So many of my clients will get a second opinion. They're still told nothing's wrong, but they feel something is wrong
Mm,
in their body. And then they start doubting the professionals, the doctors, the consultants, because they know something is wrong, but they can't find anything physical. And that's when we have to start looking at the emotional, the mental drain that's having an impact on our body. We've worked for so many years thinking that our mind and our body are separate. And
not
the
at all.
physical element, we've got to look holistically, and
Totally.
we've got to work with both together.
Mm, totally. And just knowing, understanding that there is hope with anxiety, that you don't actually have to have, a huge sort of label put on you, or you have to have masses of medication. If you're able to sort of like understand it better and have a better relationship with anxiety and actually use some of the hacks that you've described, that in itself makes people feel more under control. By understanding it, they feel in more control and they can do
Yeah,
these hacks and think, oh, right, okay, now I understand it. I can control my body because it's that feeling of
yeah,
being out of control which causes more anxiety, doesn't it? I would say.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it becomes a downward spiral.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really well explained. Um, Jen, thank you so much for all your wisdom and knowledge and experience and for sharing that today. Now, some people, I wouldn't be at all surprised, would like to get in touch with you and maybe have some more training or therapy with you or courses with you. So, how do people get in touch with you and what do you actually offer?
Okay, the best place to get in touch with me is via my website. That's www.betteryourlife.co.uk. Or people can WhatsApp me. My number is 07503 067941. And we can put that in the notes if that's okay with you,
Yep,
Wendy. Yeah, the other thing I do an introductory offer of a nervous system reset. So that's normally the best place to start. I do 3 months coaching as well, 3 months therapy, but the best place to start is the nervous system reset because that's where we teach the tools and the strategies for you to take back control. Well, I'll make sure that
fantastic.
they've got all the information they need in the notes.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. People can just go to the show notes and find all those details there and just contact you directly.
Absolutely.
And that will be a fantastic thing. And I highly recommend that. I've known you for a few years, Jen, and you've always, always been a great resource and a genuine expert in your field. So thank you so much for coming
Thank
along
you.
today. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you for having me here.